Brian Armstrong, doing some pretty exciting things. So he wrote a tweet that said, excited to announce NewLimit, a company I'm helping create as a board member and investor in the epigenetic reprogramming space with Byers Blake. The mission of NewLimit is to radically extend human lifespan. He linked a blog article to this where he talks about the different ways that people are exploring how to cure aging. I think it's important to say right off the bat, because I one of the first articles I read about this, they were like, aging is inevitable, but Brian Armstrong doesn't think so. And it's like, I think that people confound the passing of time with the damage that occurs to our cells that creates diseases that ends up killing us. One of those obviously can't be stopped. We can't reverse time, but we can absolutely find cures to diseases in our body and extend human lifespan. And we're just really, this space is moving so fast right now. We had Vitalik Buterin earlier this year give a ton of money to SENS Foundation, which is basically like this organization that creates all these offshoot companies exploring all these different ways that we can, ease human suffering and extend lifespan. And it's just really exciting. He's focused on epigenetic reprogramming, the idea that you could take a one cell and reprogram it to something else. This is an area of study that's getting really exciting because prior to this, we had stem cells, and you start with stem cells, you end up with cancer, right? But we figured out how to get stem cells, but then put them a few stages later. So it's like, okay, the cell now knows what it's going to be. Like it's really exciting what's going on. I'm going to throw this to the group for your thoughts on all of this. Will, what's your take on curing aging? Daunting task.
Yeah, VCs are having such a good time. The only thing they fear is death, it seems. And I want to go back to what you said about Vitalik there. In his pinned bio on Twitter, he has an article called The Fable of the Dragon Tyrant. And it's really long and kind of beats around the bush. It gets to the point that most people think of time and aging as something that you can't get around, and you just have to succumb to it. But there is this new push among venture capitalists and a lot of people in the tech space to invest money and solve aging as some sort of problem, just as internet money had to be a problem that was solved, just as telecommunication was some sort of problem that needed to be solved. And those things were solved by the VC model and by the capitalist model. And these people think that the same thing can happen. And there was an interesting point in Brian's blog post kind of talking about that, about how initially, a lot of these projects this company is going to develop will be extremely expensive and people will not be able to purchase it. But over time, as more money flows into it, it'll become cheaper to the point where everyone can have this technology they're trying to develop that extend people's age. So it's really fascinating to see this confluence of philosophy, tech broism, and then trying to solve a problem for everybody out there. Zach, I'll throw it down to you.
Yeah, I was going to say, this has been a long time fascination, a lot of people in tech. And I wanted to shout out Neil Stephenson. We often credit Neil Stephenson with the invention of the word metaverse. So very timely. But he also has a book, it's called Fall or Dodge in Hell. I haven't read all of it because it's doorstop size thick. So I've read I don't know, quarter of it. And the quarter that I've read, it's very much about sort of this this fictionalized quest among these different tech bro millionaires to start sort of longevity technologies and some of the different sort of factions therein. So this is something that I think Neil Stephenson certainly was aware of, at least in 2019 when this book came out. And it's something that's just been a fascination of a lot of people in the space for a while. I remember talking to a prominent crypto VC back in 2019 based in San Francisco. I'm like, hey, what are you going to do when crypto gets boring? And he's like, yeah, it'll probably get boring in 10 years. Then I'm going to do life sciences, maybe longevity stuff. So I think I could see this being the next thing that a lot of these sort of early thinkers move to. And I think a lot of these, a lot of people could end up leaving crypto for some of these pursuits should they plow all their gains into something really expensive and something that's kind of far-fetched when you think about it. But hey, I'll toss it to Naomi.
Yeah, I think Jen also had a hand up, so I'll throw to her first and then I'll say some things.
I'll go super quickly. I think it was months and months and months ago on this show where we asked each other what the next thing that VCs would be pouring their money into. And Naomi, I think it was you that said biohacking, gene editing. And I think you were completely, you hit the nail on the head. I do want to clear something up for the audience, though. When we talk about expanding lifespan, the article says it's not about extending the amount of years that you live, but it's allowing you to live the years that you're meant to live, but without the pains and ailments. So imagine being 70 or 80 years old and still having the mobility and know-with-all that you had when you were 30 years old. And that's quite an interesting future to look into. But Naomi, I'll pass it back off to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in terms of things that are cheap out there, like there are already heaps of studies about rapamycin, which is incredibly cheap on the market. Some really promising studies that are also underway. Studies like Trimex study, which are very interesting. I think it's interesting what you were talking about, both Will and Zach, about how we have, and also I want to mention the Nick Bostrom article. If you haven't read that, you absolutely should. It's really great. There's also a video version. I recommend watching the YouTube video, which basically just narrates the fable of the dragon tyrant, which is Nick Bostrom's article. It kind of talks about how when we have things that we can't control, instead of feeling helpless, we justify it by saying, well, these things are natural, these things are good. And we start to think of these awful things that happen to us, the immense pain that the elderly go into. We start to say, well, that's a natural part of life. It's a good thing. And we don't realize that, well, we can actually help these people. We could alleviate so much suffering. And I think it's important to remember that. And I just want to say, like, if anyone's watching and they're like, no, life is special because it's short. Like, the answer that I would have to that is like, well, if it's special because it's short, why don't you make it even more special and more shorter? Let's mandate euthanasia. Like, it's just such a ridiculous argument. Like, life is not special because it's short. Life is special because we make it special.
A little early for euthanasia talk.
Yeah, all right. So we won't go there, but I think that people really need to rethink their priors about all of this, because we're entering a new age. We can alleviate the suffering of a huge amount of people. And Brian Armstrong is kind of at the helm here. They've raised $105 million initially from founders to get the company off the ground, doing a lot of research. This is not the only company that's exploring this. Jeff Bezos has poured a bunch of money into all of this. Like, you've got wealthy entrepreneurs who are like, no, let's alleviate this suffering. I think that's kind of awesome. I'm excited to keep track of all of the advances they make there.